In this week's BizLine, challenges facing private enterprises in operations and efforts to remove obstacles to support domestic private enterprises. In recent times, the domestic private sector, mostly made up of small and medium-sized enterprises or SMEs, has grown significantly in both quality and quantity. However, this sector continues to face numerous challenges and barriers, including those that significantly hinder its potential and contribution to the country's economic development. To address these issues, the party and the state have been implementing various policies to support private enterprises. The key to achieving a breakthrough lies in eliminating institutional bottlenecks, improving the investment and business environment, and removing obstacles to business development. In this week's episode of BizLine, we'll explore the lingering issues that are obstructing domestic private enterprises and examine how policies are being applied to create favorable conditions for their development. Before diving into the main content, let's take a look at the following report.
One such company, Twendi Software, focuses on developing blockchain technology for businesses and applying artificial intelligence to provide efficient and secure transaction recording solutions. However, to secure large projects in the current competitive environment, the company needs capital, and that capital must be dispersed quickly. Unfortunately, stringent regulations around accessing loans have unintentionally slowed businesses down compared to their competitors during the bidding process.
Chưa kể là thủ tục hành chính thì rườm rà và nhiều khi là gây rất là phiền toái và mất nhiều thời gian cho các doanh nghiệp. Có một thời gian rất dài để chứng minh là nguồn thu nhập, dòng tiền lợi nhuận từ cái dự án đó thì mới có thể là có cửa để ngồi nói chuyện trực tiếp với cả ngân hàng được.
Difficulties in accessing credit are just one challenge when participating in large projects. Many domestic enterprises, despite meeting quality standards, face numerous hurdles in integrating into the supply chains of foreign direct investment (FDI) companies.
Liên quan chính sách bảo hộ chính sách mà FDI, các doanh nghiệp FDI nó đi theo chuỗi với nhau. Tức là ví dụ như ông nước ngoài sang thì ông đi kéo hết các chuỗi của ông ấy đi. Và ông ấy rất mất thời gian để đánh giá phát triển doanh nghiệp Việt Nam, và thậm chí rất nhiều doanh nghiệp họ chưa có cái chính sách là phát triển local, phát triển doanh nghiệp Việt Nam lên. Nên là đấy là một trong những cái mà nó rất cụ thể là bị hạn chế. Ví dụ rất nhiều doanh nghiệp mình biết rồi, họ vào đây hàng chục năm rồi, nhưng thực tế là mình không cấp được gì cho họ mấy.
Additionally, new proposals aimed at increasing administrative procedures, such as self-declaration requirements with an added 3-month document review process, further hinder progress. Increased waiting times and procedural delays cause businesses to miss opportunities and stifle their growth.
Nếu mà áp dụng cái này, chúng ta mất cạnh tranh ngay trên sân nhà.
Party General Secretary To Lam emphasized that the private sector plays a crucial role in shaping Vietnam's economic future. To nurture robust growth and achieve remarkable breakthroughs, Vietnam needs the right institutions, sound policies, and a favorable business environment to support the private sector.
It goes without saying that domestic, private, small and medium-sized enterprises face numerous challenges, among them difficulties in establishing businesses and accessing preferential loans for operations are preventing many promising business ideas from taking off. To discuss this issue, joining us in the studio today is Dr. Lê Duy Bình, an economist and also Managing Director of Economica Vietnam. And connecting with us from the UK is Mr. Christopher Jeffrey, a member of the Executive Board of British Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam, or BritChams. Well, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So how do you assess the domestic private sector's role, which mostly consists of small and medium-sized enterprises in the economy's overall development?
It is obvious that the economy cannot grow at 8% or double-digit figures in the coming decade if we cannot have the double-digit growth of the private sector business in Vietnam. It plays a decisive role in supporting Vietnam economy, to boost productivity, to boost efficiency, and it is a decisive factor for the economy to transition from a factor-based economy to an efficiency-based economy, to an innovation-led economy. Private sector also creates 50 to 80% of the total jobs according to different definitions. So the jobs creation is also a very important factor. So private sector economy in Vietnam also plays a very important role in social security, in social services delivery, and also it contributes to the social market-oriented economy of the country.
And Mr. Jeffrey, what do you think about this?
Multinational companies started as small companies one day a long time ago. So they are the future of business. It's also important that people invest in their small businesses and grow them over time. I think it's something that needs to be developed over a period of years to grow so an SME becomes a multinational eventually. So government policies are key, and government support are key to encourage, facilitate, and ensure that everything is done to support their growth in an ever competitive, more competitive market.
Despite playing an important role in the economy, many believe that SMEs have not received much favorable treatment as FDI enterprises. So what do you think, how do you evaluate the government support policy and the business investment environment for the private sector?
We see a lot of reforms in licensing, in a lot of reforms in administrative procedures, in regulatory reform in different sectors. So we see that the business environment in Vietnam has been improving significantly in the last 3 decades in favor of the private sector business. We have to look at this fact, and there's a lot of private sector business that is now growing, but there is still some discrimination that need to be removed further. We still see that some FDI, some state-owned enterprise have a better access to land, and also to better access to public services, better access to administrative procedures, implementation. So all this, I think that it needs to be removed, and I think that now both the central government and the local government do see that there is a need to improve that.
I think it's important that Vietnam doesn't just focus on FDI, but grows its own business, grows its own SMEs, so that they will develop, and ultimately they will become FDIs in another country because they've developed to such an extent.
In recent years, reducing land taxes has emerged as one of the most practical fiscal support policies. It directly benefits individuals and businesses by providing them with additional resources to expand production and operations.
Tăng được cái năng lực cạnh tranh của doanh nghiệp. Nếu có cái nguồn đó, chúng tôi đầu tư vào thêm để cải tiến sản xuất, cộng với nâng cao chất lượng sản phẩm, nghiên cứu sản phẩm mới hoặc là nâng cao chất lượng dịch vụ. Và đặc biệt nếu tiếp tục được áp dụng trong năm 2025 thì cái hiệu quả của nó sẽ cao hơn nhiều so với thời điểm trước.
The reduction of input costs has proven to be a powerful driver of productivity, significantly boosting businesses' confidence in meeting their growth targets this year.
Dùng cái tiền mà miễn giảm đấy để tái đầu tư, mở rộng cái quy mô sản xuất. Cụ thể doanh nghiệp chúng tôi cũng được hưởng lợi từ những chính sách của chính phủ.
The policy of creating mutual benefits for private and state-owned enterprises supports the Prime Minister's goals of 8% economic growth and job creation across society.
Chính sách đã chứng minh được hiệu quả mà nó có thể áp dụng một ngay và đông đảo người dân đều có thể được hưởng lợi. Thì chính sách này có mức độ tác động đến nền kinh tế rất là nhanh và rất là hiệu quả.
With the first quarter of 2025 coming to an end, swift implementation of support policies is crucial to boost production and business activities, helping achieve the government's 8% economic growth target.
What do you think about the preferential tax rates for small and medium-sized enterprises in Vietnam?
I think it's important. It's not the most important thing. An SME has to survive on its own. It needs to be supported at the beginning. It needs to be encouraged, and tax breaks are a key element to that. But what's important is that all the other elements come together as well. So people think tax cuts, but the reality is they are one part of a very complex jigsaw that's needed for business to succeed. It needs to be accompanied with lots of other initiatives, lots of other policies and regulations to support the business, because preferential tax arrangements on their own will not make a company a success.
The draft amendment to the corporate income tax law includes several provisions aimed at supporting business capital turnover for production, with SMEs eligible for lower corporate income tax rates than the standard rate. So what are your thoughts on this proposed tax rate?
The preferential tax rate should be devoted to those who support the national developments and the target of the government or the target of the country. So for them, those enterprise that is supportive to, that is leading the economy towards an innovation-led economy, to support the green growth or to support the innovation-led economy, it should be targeted. So those enterprises who have the intellectual property that is registered internationally to move the economy towards a more efficiency economy, for those enterprises who can link up to the international global supply chain, for example, and they have some new product, some new services that is innovative. So those enterprises need to be supported with the preferential rate. So we should not have the preferential rate for every enterprise. So it should be targeted.
A company that specializes in supplying wooden door systems and fireproof doors for commercial apartments is struggling to meet demand, even after securing a $1.5 million USD loan. Orders from social housing projects have surged by nearly 50% this year, creating an urgent need for additional capital.
Chúng tôi đã ký được rất nhiều hợp đồng tại các tỉnh như Bình Dương, Hải Phòng, Hà Nam với khởi lượng là 9.000 bộ cử. Cho nên cái nguồn vốn để mở rộng sản xuất là cực kỳ bức thiết, và chúng tôi cũng mong muốn là tiếp cận được cái nguồn vốn giá rẻ và thủ tục thật dễ dàng.
In most projects that require investment, loan capital typically comprises about 1/3 of the total investment.
Không có tài sản đảm bảo thì có một cái ví dụ nữa, một cái cách tiếp cận nữa, đấy là tín chấp. Tuy nhiên là cái cách mà đánh giá tín nhiệm tín dụng của ngân hàng bây giờ cũng phần nhiều dựa vào những cái gì mà nó hữu hình, ví dụ như là tài sản anh có được từ việc sản xuất kinh doanh hay tương tự như vậy. Thì với các công ty công nghệ nói riêng như bọn anh thì cái đấy là gần như là không thể.
Recognizing these challenges, a bank has launched a $615 million USD credit package for private and small to medium enterprises at an interest rate of just over 6% annually, while reducing disbursement time.
Chúng tôi cũng phối hợp với các bộ phận phòng ban để tinh giản được 30% các bước trong quy trình phê duyệt, và chúng tôi cũng tăng cường các cái đội ngũ thẩm định phê duyệt và phê duyệt tập trung tại hội sở, cũng như là tiếp cận một cái nguồn vốn cách dễ dàng hơn trên các cái nền tảng số của LP Bank.
Several banks are also developing ecosystems around projects by partnering with key clients, enabling private enterprises to secure loans without collateral if they meet certain conditions.
Với những doanh nghiệp có đủ năng lực để thực hiện triển khai thì chúng tôi sẽ kết nối các doanh nghiệp tham gia vào chuỗi và tăng thêm cơ hội cho các doanh nghiệp trong cái việc là thúc đẩy hoạt động kinh doanh của mình. Và ngoài ra thì khi tham gia vào chuỗi quản lý dòng tiền, chúng tôi cũng có cái cơ sở để giảm lãi suất, giảm các loại phí cho khách hàng.
In 2024, the economy's credit is projected to reach 136% of GDP, with SMEs making up 19% of total credit. Increasing this proportion requires not only improved credit policies, but also more effective development and credit guarantee funds for SMEs at all government levels, from ministries to local authorities.
Now, besides access to capital, what obstacle do domestic businesses face in terms of operation?
They don't have resources in terms of human, in terms of capital, as compared with the bigger enterprise. To do the regulatory cost compliance costs and the administrative component cost is often higher for the smaller enterprise in terms of revenue, when we compare with the revenue. So it is very important for the SME that they are having a very good environment in terms of regulatory business environment, regulatory framework that is favorable for them. So barrier number one, according to me, that is regulatory barriers or the licensing barriers or the administrative procedure that is too much complicated for them. So beside capital, that is number one. Number two, that is again the human resources that they are facing. SME are facing the competition from FDI companies, from state-owned enterprise, from bigger business in competing for good human resources. So human resources that is available for SME, that is also barriers number two of the regulatory barriers. And again, also the accessibility to land and to technology is also very important for SME, and they are facing these barriers that they need to overcome.
Recently, the government has taken drastic measures to ensure the implementation of support policies for SMEs, such as reducing taxes and fees and simplifying cumbersome administrative procedures. What are your thoughts on these policies help domestic business to compete in the home field?
I think it's about stability. It's also about ensuring transparency, that everyone knows what's going to happen, and the stability that the policies and plans are for the next 5-10 years, because that will be a period of time that businesses need to establish themselves. So I think those are the key elements. Stability, so we all know what's going to happen, and transparency in terms of the same rules for everybody. You do not want to spend your time filling in forms, queuing up to see somebody and getting a stamp or an approval. So every minute, every hour of your day that is spent doing that means that you can't grow your business. You can't make your business a success. And Vietnam, like every other country in the world, requires a strong, vibrant SME sector. As I said previously, they are the world leaders of tomorrow.
According to the latest data, Vietnam currently has approximately 930,000 domestic private enterprises in operation, with small and medium-sized enterprises making up about 98% of that number. These enterprises have mobilized a total capital of over $660 million USD, which accounts for less than 30% of the total capital utilized for production and business activities across both domestic and foreign enterprise sectors.
Certainly a step in the right direction. But I think that beyond these efforts, there's a broader need for policy support to go and strengthen Vietnam's financial landscape. So that means like incentives, that means initiatives like tax incentives, credit guarantee schemes, and improvements to credit infrastructure as well. I think that these steps here are particularly important in Vietnam, where financial institutions are still in the state of development, and access to external funding, like venture capital, for example, remains very limited, at least for now.
To address this challenge, experts and investors suggest implementing tax incentives for private enterprises in the export supply chain, a move that would help them access capital for production reinvestment and business growth.
Khuyến khích nữa là gì? Chúng ta các doanh nghiệp trong nước mà phục vụ làm được sản phẩm cho doanh nghiệp nước ngoài thì có hỗ trợ đặc biệt thuế. Ví dụ như vậy. Hoặc xuất khẩu hỗ trợ đặc biệt thuế. Đúng không? Bởi vì làm cho nước ngoài cũng như xuất khẩu, làm xuất khẩu ta gọi khái niệm xuất khẩu trong nước và xuất khẩu ra nước ngoài thì đều là xuất khẩu cả. Đúng là xuất khẩu cả. Như vậy tại sao áp dụng thuế đặc biệt cho những cái doanh nghiệp có thể triển khai những khả năng xuất khẩu như đó? Thì tôi nghĩ là nên áp dụng như vậy.
Experts emphasize that establishing a fair tax policy for foreign invested enterprises, FDIs, is essential to foster healthy competition and drive the growth of domestic private enterprises. Additionally, experts suggest that Vietnam should introduce preferential mechanisms and policies focused on developing special economic zones. Each region could prioritize key technology sectors, with private enterprises acting as leaders to guide SMEs in collective growth.
Cái ví dụ như của Pháp đó, là tạo ở các cái địa phương, đúng không? Có những cái cụm công nghiệp với những cái ngành rất là chú trọng và tập trung vào phát triển. Thì ở Việt Nam cũng có thể như vậy, những cái khu kinh tế đặc biệt tập trung vào một số cái lĩnh vực trọng điểm mà cái khu vực đó sẽ rất là mạnh, thì mình có thể mường tượng và tạo thành hẳn một cái khu mà cả một cái hệ sinh thái cho cái lĩnh vực đấy nó sẽ tập trung ở Hải Phòng và xung quanh Hải Phòng.
Beyond tax incentives, experts recommend creating a favorable and stable business environment that ensures the rights of businesses, including freedom of operation, property ownership, and fair competition.
Phải tính đến cái xu hướng là Việt Nam phải có những cái ưu tiên trong nội địa hóa. Thì chính vì thế đây là một cơ sở để chúng ta đặt hàng, chúng ta giao nhiệm vụ cho doanh nghiệp tư nhân. Và nhà nước thì tôi cho rằng là cần có lòng tin. Thì đấy là hai yếu tố mà sẽ giúp thúc đẩy cho khu vực kinh tế tư nhân có thể đảm nhận những công trình quan trọng quốc gia.
Now, recently, Party General Secretary Tô Lâm held a working session with the Central Policy and Strategy Committee regarding private sector development. The discussion emphasized on a crucial breakthrough point, which is removing institutional bottlenecks, improving the investment and business environment, and eliminating barriers for business development. So, what do you think about this message?
For example, the statement saying that the private sector business, the private sector economy will become the most important pillar of the economy. Very simple statement, but it really paved the way for the upcoming very strong institutional reforms that we are expecting. The reforms in regulations, the reforms in the institutions that is implementing these regulations, the governments from the central level to the local level, that is ongoing, and we hope that these institutional reforms, both in terms of regulation, both in terms of institution, will be very supportive of the private sector development. We will see less discrimination of the private sector. We will see a business environment that is more enabling, more favorable for the private sector business. So I think that this statement is very important in that sense. It would be paving the way for the new regulations reform, a new institutional reform that would be made in favor of the private sector business, and it also reinforce the confidence of the private sector business into the policy and the upcoming reforms by the party and the state.
And Mr. Jeffrey, what do you think about this?
I think hopefully it is. Like all things, it's about the implementation. So it's about the implementation of these changes and how effective that is, and how consistent it is across the whole country. But it's great to have the leadership taking the baton and really running with it and trying to support SMEs, trying to support the future growth for Vietnam. So it's a great start, but like all these things, it's a race. So you can't just have a great start, you've got to have a great finish as well. So it's making sure that government, provincial government, central government work together to actually release the burden on the SME to support them through their development.
What recommendations do you have for enhancing the effectiveness of policies that support domestic SMEs development?
So the support policy also need to be focusing more on the universal one for the business environment reforms, need to be focused on institutional reform that can bring immediate benefit for the private sector business. All this can contribute to the confidence of the private sector business. And when they are free from the legal risk, and when they are free from the concern about the property, concerned about the property, the ownership of their asset and the product. I'm sure that the confidence of business could be boosted, and all this could contribute to better investment by the private sector. All this, I hope that it could be the focus of the coming reforms.
Now, Mr. Jeffrey, what can Vietnam learn from the models that the UK applies in supporting private businesses?
The UK government realised that what you have to do is find tomorrow's big companies. So it's very important, as they've already started through the favourable tax rates, etc., to encourage the next big movement. Okay, whether that's high tech, whether it's semiconductors, whatever. It's important that they support that. I think also it's about encouraging and holding that hand, because this journey can be scary. An SME is small by its very nature, and therefore it can be lonely. So it needs a supporting hand, and that's through government, but also through government-sponsored elements like ambassadors and so forth, who've been there, who've experienced it.
Well, once again, thank you to both of our guests for being here with us.
You're welcome.
Party General Secretary Tô Lâm has directed continuous efforts to remove all barriers and promote the private sector. He emphasizes that the private sector is the most crucial driver for achieving double-digit economic growth. The government is also gathering input to issue a dedicated resolution on private sector development, reaffirming the importance and the role of this economic sector. Experts hope that the resolution will focus on areas such as improving the business environment, implementing fair tax policies, encouraging innovation and providing financial support for small and medium-sized enterprises, and creating more favorable conditions for sustainable private sector growth. These measures are essential for enabling private businesses to thrive and contribute more significantly to GDP growth and enhance the competitiveness of Vietnam's economy. And that wraps up this edition of BizLine. Stay tuned for more insights or download our VTV Go app from App Store or Google Play for the latest news and updates. Until next time.